Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. My name is Will Donovan. I'm joined here by Michael Richardson, and today we're going to share with you a framework for thinking about business improvement and business operations in the context of cybersecurity and a number of engineering topics that Michael is an expert in. I'm going to start by sharing with you the framework that you see here on the screen. What is this framework? It's something that I and my team have been working on for a number of years. What we've found is that there is a need in many cases for our clients at DCG and clients I've worked with over the past few years to understand where they are in their journey to excellence in automation, especially in the context of procuring and implementing software. And we came up with this framework to help clients understand where they are and what their requirement ought to be as they focus on their level of maturity. One of the benefits of this framework is it helps demystify a number of topics, often in the case of using software. So today we thought we would apply this framework, which I'll explain in a minute, to a topic which Michael knows a lot about. And I'm excited to do that. And before we get started in discussing this framework, I would love it, Michael, if you could introduce yourself, and we'll talk a little bit about the format today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Will. So my name is Michael Richardson. I am the practice director for our modern cloud practice, which really focuses in on the M365 and Azure stacks. And we've got a good amount of focus on security and infrastructure as well. We talk a lot about security with our clients. I'm really excited to be talking to Will Donovan about this topic, as he's done a significant amount of management consulting and has seen the benefits of applying this type of a framework in an organization, which again, he'll spell out the framework, but I think it's a really helpful framework as we talk about cybersecurity and how do we advance the security posture of an organization.
Thank you, Michael. So as Michael mentioned, my background is as a consultant, typically in management and technology and operations strategy. And what I'd like to do is share the sort of why of this framework. And then what we're going to do is walk this framework through Michael's expertise, and he's going to share with us how he would use this framework to think about the posture and readiness of a particular client or customer in their journey towards automation and cybersecurity. So for starters, SPEAR, it's a nice acronym. It implies a sort of first in, first out, or last out posture. Certainly that's something that I take a lot of pride in with myself and my teams as we support clients. What I've found over the years is that my clients really struggle to even achieve surveillance, let alone performance, let alone excellence, let alone automation. They struggle to understand what is going on right now, what has happened in the past. So what I try and do first and foremost is say, look, before you go and implement some piece of software that's expensive and is focused on automation, especially high levels of automation, you need to ask the question, do you understand your requirements to see everything that's going on and what's happened with confidence? Can you surveil? Can you measure that information in such a way as to give you a picture of your performance? Do you understand, are you measuring the right things? Are you measuring the wrong things? Can you measure it all? Do you have KPIs? Can you then sustain the performance to a degree of excellence, and what it's going to take to maintain that sustainability over a very long period of time? And do you understand the requirements for your business to do so? And lastly, if you can surveil, if you can understand performance, if you can achieve sustained excellence, then you may move on to full automation. And I think, as Michael and I were preparing for this session, we agreed most folks that we talk to struggle to even achieve surveillance. And often they find that they're asking questions about, hey, can we implement this fully automated solution? We say, look, you need to cover the basics and then go through this kind of journey. And then, yes, you can do full automation. And I have also found that it is critical to understand the requirements to achieve each one of these pillars. And that's where an expert like Michael comes in, because, of course, when you apply this framework to any particular sector or industry, it's critical to understand what is the requirement. So what we're going to do is I'm going to bring Michael through this framework. I might ask Michael a couple of questions that might be kind of leading questions, but obviously this is something that he and I have talked a lot about, both in preparation for this workshop and also just in general. Let's just begin with the topic of surveillance and what it requires to be capable to surveil our situation in cybersecurity, Michael. And anything else that you want to do to prime this conversation, please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Will, for that great introduction to the framework, and I'm excited to walk through it. So, first thing that I'm going to say is we're going to really hone in on a specific area here of cybersecurity. In a short amount of time, there's no way that we can really cover the entire breadth of information security for an organization. We're going to really focus on the Microsoft Cloud ecosystem, and what are the things that we should be applying this framework to in the context of this framework. And so, from the very first component here, surveillance, I have to agree with Will. The first thing that you have to be able to do is you have to be able to see what's going on in your organization, in your environment, so that you can make informed decisions, so that you can do all of the rest of the components of this. So, from a Microsoft Cloud perspective, there's a few areas that I think are really important to get visibility into, that I think we need to focus on. The first one, I would say, is user risk. I think that is a huge component. We've seen in the industry, all of the talk has shifted from securing my internal network to this idea of zero trust. And there's things in the cloud, there's things, you have remote and hybrid workers, and so it's really the identity is the key security barrier now. And so I think we've got to be able to have visibility to user risk. I think as an organization, when we look at our cloud estate, both across Microsoft's cloud and others, we need to see what is our security posture, what types of policies do we have in place, and how are we aligning with some of the policies that we've set out as an organization. And lastly, I think you've got to have visibility into what types of incidents you're seeing as an organization. And so you've got to have some way of recognizing and knowing, okay, have we had a security incident? That's honestly, that's a question that a lot of organizations can't answer, is if you had a security incident, would you know about it, and how would you know about it? So I think those are really some key areas to look at as we talk about surveillance.
Michael, if you were doing a gap analysis or requirements analysis and to establish some kind of roadmap for a client, where and they really struggle just to do this one thing, what would you say to them is their first step just to get surveillance?
So I think there's a couple of things, and I think really before you even get to that point of surveillance, you have to start talking about requirements from the outset. And I know we'll talk about this all the way through, but you've got to understand what industry you're in, what type of organization are you, because some organizations may have to comply with HIPAA, some may have to comply with SOX, some may have, there's all different regulatory compliances that you may have to adhere to. And so that's really a fundamental part of cybersecurity for an organization, is understanding what the organization is. But from there, I would say surveillance in a lot of ways comes down to the right tools, and do you have the right tools in place to be able to see and have visibility into the security landscape of your organization. And as we talk about some of these other components, I think we'll jump into a couple of different tools that Microsoft gives us to see that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about performance. So I think in my experience, one of the big benefits of any kind of software platform is, does it provide performance indication and performance measurement out of the box? What can we talk about when it comes to performance in this space that these tools are providing and that your team can help folks navigate?
Yeah. So let's go ahead. We're going to look at a couple of dashboards here that Microsoft gives us. Let's look at the first one, which is our Microsoft 365 Defender. We've got a secure score here in this dashboard. This is one of those that's, if you don't go looking for it, you might not stumble on it, but there's so much helpful information here in your Microsoft environment. And this is going to be focused more so on kind of your SaaS platforms and identity in particular. But what you're going to see here is in this demo environment, there's not, and you can see the categories here down below, top recommended actions. It's telling you, hey, you need to enable a policy to block legacy authentication. You need to ensure all users can complete multi-factor authentication. These are key security posture settings that Microsoft's detecting for you and saying, hey, here's some areas where you're missing it. I think it's important to, and I'll probably say this again as we go through, but it's important to recognize that security is never just a box that you check, right? This is something that's ongoing. So this, as you look at something like this is helping you to measure the security of your organization, but this isn't something you're going to come in here and in 5 minutes check a few boxes and now you're secure. So this is one dashboard I think where we can measure the security posture of your organization. If you want to go on to the next slide, there's another dashboard for identity in particular. Again, some really great recommendations here from Microsoft as you talk about how do we secure our identities. And you can see what's the impact, what's the implementation cost. So there's a lot of great information here. Again, they're not going to be check boxes you turn on, but it's going to be some really great guidance to see, okay, how are we doing? How do we compare with other organizations of our size? And what should we be focusing on next to improve our security posture?
Thanks for that, Michael. Let's say that you have a client and you've really taken them on the journey. They have some confidence in their ability to do surveillance because they have confidence in their data. We've implemented some tools that have given them a way to measure their score. Now, we're looking at the next year or two. We're looking at how do we sustain that and achieve that level of excellence and maybe incrementally improve that excellence. What are some of the tips of the trade that you and your team are providing to allow a client to get 1, 3, 5 years worth of long-term performance?
Yeah. So, and again, I said this, but I think it's worth repeating. This is a journey. So we're talking about years-long journey here, and this isn't something that you do once and then you're done. It's a continuous improvement, and it can be daunting. I think it's important to recognize that too. That cybersecurity can be very daunting, and so the goal isn't 100% next year. The goal is better next year than we were this year, and we help organizations figure out, okay, where's the trade-off between cost and time spent and getting to that next step of what's going to make our organization more secure. It's not about reaching X level of maturity. It's about continuing to mature. And I think what we see organizations do is as they get onto that path, they do see consistent growth, and so then you can look back 1, 2, 3 years and say we're really in a much better place than we were. And as you continue on that road, there will be new things that come up, new threats, new best practices. So it's an ongoing journey, but I think it starts by being able to see what is our posture today and what are some of the highlights or the top priority areas that we really need to focus on next.
What do you think is a key organizational role that plays into long-term sustainability of excellence? And what would you say to that person if their company doubled in size or tripled in size?
Yeah. So I think one thing to keep in mind is security isn't just one person's job. It's has to be an organization-wide culture. Information security has to be something that permeates your organization if it's going to be truly effective. And that doesn't mean that everybody in the organization is going to be a cybersecurity engineer, but what it does mean is you'll equip them with some training to have an awareness throughout. And there's great tools out there for that. Things like Microsoft has some good spam and phishing automated training. There's other services out there like KnowBe4. So I think that's important, but I think it really has to come from the top down as well. You've got to make an organizational decision that cybersecurity is important and set priorities and budgets accordingly from the top.
So you just hit on that word, automation. And in my experience, when it comes to software, and it doesn't matter in the enterprise what kind of software, a lot of business decision leaders and makers are saying, I want full automation. I want to buy something. I want it to be automated. And in my experience, they don't understand their requirement. They don't understand their situation. And then they run into a lot of pitfalls on the journey to full automation. I'm sure you've seen the same thing in your space. If you could just talk us through, certainly pitfalls, and then what are the preparedness steps? If you can surveil, if you can perform, if you can excel, clearly those are some key check marks. What are some other things that a client should be keeping in mind as they move towards true full automation in this space?
I think first of all, you've got to go through the steps. There's no shortcut to this. So once you've defined once you can see, once you know what excellence looks like, and you start to define your requirements, automation is going to come in kind of two key areas when you talk about cybersecurity. The first one is going to be maintaining compliance. And so if you want to show the last slide, there's a list of some policies in Azure that can really help here. So Azure's got a set of policies. When I say policies, these are like guardrails or settings that are enforced in your Azure environment. You can go in and you'll see that some of these are grouped into what's called initiatives. You'll see some of them have hundreds of policies, but these can be enforced in your environment so that either you're warned when you're not meeting them, or even you can automatically remediate these things, like our backups enabled, our public IP addresses forbidden in certain environments, so that there's no external access, et cetera. So I think that's really powerful. There's other things like Intune that can help you, again, with maintaining compliance to the policies. So that's kind of a security posture. Are we maintaining security posture in an automated way? And the second is with incident response. So for that, we'll see a tool like Sentinel, which is a SIM tool. It's going to take in all kinds of logging and information and build detection rules around security incidents. And so when you have a security incident, you need two things. You need alerting, and then you also need potentially some kind of automated response, like disabling accounts and things. That's kind of the holy grail, right? Everything is automated, and an attack happens and it's automatically remediated. It takes a lot of time to get there. And I think you've got to go through the steps to get there too.
Perfect. We intended to keep this a short session today. The fact is that I'm sure we could talk for many hours on the subject. And I'm sure that there are questions, and what we'll say here is if you have questions that you'd like to ask us, we will close this session, but stay on if you'd like to ask questions or have any further discussion. Michael, the reason why I thought it would be interesting for us to talk about this is that in my experience, clients just don't understand the requirement. And they don't understand the requirement because they don't understand where they are on this journey. And that's what SPEAR is all about, is just to kind of frame out, look, you can't put carts before horses here. You got to take the journey, but you might be quite sophisticated, and then we can help you become even more sophisticated. Is there any final thoughts or words you want to leave the folks here with, in the context of anything we discussed today or this framework?
Yeah, I think two things that I would say. One is it's definitely okay to ask for help in getting kind of a roadmap in place for this, and help in two ways. One, help in deciding what is the next step. And another way to get help would be, how do I really articulate this and communicate this to my leadership, or to the rest of the management team, so that everyone's on the same page and understands the importance of cybersecurity and what's the next priority as we talk about cybersecurity.